have with me my guest, Simon T. Bailey. He is one of America's top 10 most booked speakers on change, leadership, and experience. A former leader of a Fortune 500 company who has helped people discover their inner brilliance. He is a best-selling author, Hall of Fame speaker, and renowned teacher. Simon has helped shape the lives of more than 2 million people in 45 countries. Whether advising CEOs or speaking at a conference, Simon challenges individuals to shift their thinking and create their future. Welcome, Simon, and thank you so much for being here with me today.
Well, it's so good to be with you. Thank you so much for having me.
You're welcome. You're welcome. So I have so many questions to ask, but because of the length of this interview, I'll try to keep it as concise as possible. And hopefully our audience, they will be getting your book as well, Shift Your Brilliance. I do have it, but I love audiobooks, so it's on my phone. So those of you who are like me and love to listen to audio, Simon is an amazing narrator, so you'll truly enjoy his book, the audio version as well as the physical book. So Simon, I loved, in your book, you said that through your adolescent and teen years, you were force-fitting your way into places you didn't belong. How did you discover your brilliance, which has led you to such an accomplished career and a standout brand?
I think really when I discovered my brilliance, I was working at Disney, and I recognized that I had worked there as long as I could. And there came an opportunity when I had to answer 3 questions. Question number 1, what would I do if I knew I couldn't fail? Question number 2, what would I do if no one paid me to do it? And question number 3, what makes me alive? And when I answered those 3 questions, I recognized that it was time for me to shift gears and move into a fresh direction.
Wow, that's amazing. And so I know that's not always easy for anyone to do. And in your book, you said that you went from hitting your finger with a hammer
Yes,
instead of hitting
yes,
the nail on the head. Now, a lot of people
yes,
can relate to being that place. What would you say to
yes.
someone who feels like they're forcing their way through building their brand rather than being in the flow where they're pulling success towards them?
Right. So here's what I would say to them. Number 1, life begins at the end of your comfort zone. What I've discovered as an entrepreneur, when we try to push our way into the future, all of a sudden it's like pushing water uphill. When we
Mm,
try to overcompensate, when we try to say, get it now, do it fast, that comes from a place of desperation. And so what I've learned is to be intentional about reflection, slowing down in order to speed up, going with the natural current of where things are. And so just being very mindful of where you are and being self-aware. The second thing is identifying mentors who have already been
mm,
there, done that, have gotten the t-shirt. Ask them, engage them in dialogue so they cut down your learning curve. The third thing is to be intentional about your ongoing learning and development, to say, okay, if this worked, why did it work? What made it
mhm.
work? If it didn't work, what did I learn from it? And what am I going to do differently or better?
That's very interesting. But how does someone, because sometimes it can be very hard to tell the difference between when you're actually coming up against a challenge that you're in the right direction, or when you're actually pushing too hard and you're in the wrong direction. How do you know the difference?
So, first of all, the moment you experience frustration, exhaustion, you don't want to go on. That's when you have to stop and assess, okay, what's really happening here? Is the universe trying to give me a sign that
Yeah.
I need to go in another direction? I'll give you an example. There have been many deals, business deals, that I've been trying to do over the years. And I just reached a place when I absolutely am at my wits' end. And some
Mm,
instances, when I'm at my wits' end, I'm either a relationship, a phone call, or an opportunity away to see if I would just stay the course. And when I've had, it's turned out to be the right thing. But then on the flip side, there have been some things that absolutely were a miserable failure and a mistake. And I have to put my pride aside and let it go. But
Mm.
before I do that, I get counsel from individuals that I trust who are smarter than me, and I lay out the case before them, and I allow them to speak into my life to give me feedback, but then I make the decision. And at times, quite honestly, there are some things that I needed to let go. I needed to let die and not
Yes.
hold on to it because it was in my head that it would work, but customers were not buying it.
That's an amazing concept of letting things die, because that's the hardest part, isn't it? Really putting our ego aside, and that picture, that vision that we have, and really stepping into reality and saying, hey, this is time to change course.
Sometimes we have to sacrifice the cows. I know that's not a popular thing to say in the Caribbean, but yes.
I love it. Now, I want to talk more about the subject of sacrifice, because you did a lovely talk around that. But I want to ask you, one of the things that I noticed when you speak, even when you said something where, you do this work because you knew you could not fail. Now, there's a high level of
Mhm.
confidence that came out of that statement. How were you able to develop that level of
Right.
certainty and confidence to be able to deliver your brilliance, to an audience and make an impact?
Well, my dad, my Jamaican father told me when I was 8 years of age that I used to go in the backyard of where I grew up in Buffalo, New York. So my mother's from Florida, my father's from Jamaica, so I'm a Jamaican. And I grew up in Buffalo, New York, and I would turn over the trash cans and stand on top of the trash cans and give a lecture to the grass at 8. And
Mm,
give a lecture to the grass, the garden, and the wind would be my applause. And he said, also at 8 years of age, I told my parents that I was going to write books. Well, 40 years later, I am literally walking out what I do not remember doing or saying to my parents. Somewhere within me, it's hardwired to have this confidence to just believe. Now, everyone that's listening to us right now, what I would encourage you to think about is in your history, when you look back at your life, what do you know that you know that you know? And do you speak from that place? Because when you know it, more so than anybody, you speak from a place of confidence, a place of destiny, and when you open your mouth, it comes forth because you're just assured of who you really are.
wow, I feel that. That was very powerful. I hope whoever's listening, you need to be taking notes, because this is really powerful stuff. Because, I was just giving a talk this morning, and it says that when you speak from a place of enthusiasm comes from being one with God. And I really felt that spirit moving in me as you spoke. And there is that alignment. And that's what we need to be looking for when it comes to shifting our brilliance.
Absolutely. If it doesn't move you, it's not going to
Yeah.
move anyone else that listens to you.
I love it. And so on one of your talks, you shared that you worked at Walt Disney, and that
Yes.
you got some advice from the president, I think it was, and you discovered the concept of being an emotionologist. So speaking of
Yes.
emotions and
Yes.
moving people, for brands to be successful and for your career, can you share some insight on what an emotionologist is, and how can one put some more
Right.
emotion into everything they do?
Well, the goal of an emotionologist is to surprise and delight the customer in the experience. So, an emotionologist, he or she understands that your business is not the product or service that you offer. It's you are
Mhm.
an emotion, a connection, a perception, a moment, and a memory. So, how do you look for ways to exceed the expectation of the customer in that experience? That is your brand, not the name on the door, not the name on the business card. Perception, connection. How do I connect with them?
Mm.
Then the third thing to really understand as it relates to emotionologists is the goal is never to be the best, it's to be the only. So how do I
Mm.
become the only person that people seek out? Bill Taylor, who wrote the book Simply Brilliant, talks about how do you become the only in your category that people will pay a premium for, they will beat a path to your door to do business with you, and they will become your unofficial marketing department once you exceed their expectation, give them
Mhm.
something they can't get anywhere else, and give them extra touches that makes you memorable. That's when you become an emotionologist.
That's amazing. And so it also comes from you being something. And I know that you mentioned developing your signature aura so that you can have that sort of emotional presence that really draws people to you. How do you develop a
Yes.
signature aura?
So I'm going to give you three quick insights. But here's the overarching thought. Kindness begets kindness. So the
Mm.
first thing, the next time you go to a restaurant, I want you to greet the person who's serving you by their name. So many times people work in a restaurant, they have their name tag, but nobody calls their name. They will
Yeah.
tell you their name, but how often do you use their name? And I know this might be so simple, but if you're going to develop a signature aura, it starts with how well do you connect with people by acknowledging human beings who may not be on your level, but you can just start with simple respect and be kind. Second
Mm.
thing I want you to do after that person serves you, I want you to give them a 20% tip. Go above and beyond. That will probably be the largest tip that they've ever gotten, but it will be something memorable that they would say, you know what? I can't wait to serve that person again. And then the third thing I want you to do, and I'm going to move away from a restaurant
Okay.
example, in your business, I want you to think about the last 5 people who have tremendously touched you, impacted you, influenced your business, or influenced you to this point. Write them a handwritten note on stationery or a note card. Put a personal stamp on it. Put it in mail to them. What you're doing in coming from a place of kindness is you're giving a little something extra for nothing. You're going above and
Mm.
beyond to do those little things with using a person's name, giving a better tip, handwritten note. You're doing all these things and you're coming from a place of service and love and kindness and care. That's how you begin to develop a signature aura.
That's amazing. I love that because we've lost so much of that today in a digital age where we're just expecting to send things through email. But that personal human touch is so important for brand building and
Yes.
business.
Yes, it is. And
Absolutely.
it's what separates you from everyone else.
Absolutely. I love that. And so the signature aura is one piece, building all of that emotion. But we spoke a little bit about confidence. And one of the things that I love that you spoke about is an audacious life.
Hmm.
A lot of women in particular, I think men are more audacious by nature than women. Like, men will say things like, I'm so awesome, I did all these things. Women will be like, I didn't do enough today. How can a woman become more audacious so that she can become more brilliant in her career?
The way for women to become more audacious is to, first of all, celebrate what's right about them instead of what's wrong with them. So, ladies, if you're listening, take out a sheet of paper, set your smartphone to 30 seconds, and in 30 seconds, write down on a piece of paper what's right about you. At the end of those
Mhm.
30 seconds, step back and zoom out and look. This is what's right about me. And you put it on paper. What you've written down, how often do you decree and declare that out of your mouth? How often do you speak that forth? How often do you begin to give speech to what you believe about yourself instead of what others are saying? The second thing to think about is people don't see you as you are, they see you as they are. So there have been some
Mm.
people who have projected onto the consciousness of your spirit their limited worldview of how they saw you instead of how you see you. So the first thing you have to do is totally disconnect, disregard and literally begin to take away all of the negative spam that your spirit has received and delete it from your mind drive and from your heart drive, and begin to upload who you really are. The third thing to think about in really being audacious is I want you to celebrate. And you're probably saying, celebrate what? I want you to celebrate two ways. I want you to call the florist in your town, in your city, and I want you to order some flowers. Order the most beautiful arrangement that your budget can afford, and send those flowers. And the note card should say, from Oh Brilliant One. And when people come by your office or come by your desk or say, who in the world sent you those flowers? You can say, Oh Brilliant One sent me those flowers. It's to remind you that you are brilliant. Another thing you can do is I want you to go to the finest restaurant in your area, even if you have to go alone, if you don't go with friends or with family. And I want you to treat yourself to the most expensive dinner that you have ever had. Now, why? When you do this, you are raising the level of how you see yourself by experiencing the best of the best. So you're a five-star thinker, go and eat in a five-star place, or treat yourself to a weekend at a five-star resort. Experience the spa, experience the service. What is this doing? It's raising your consciousness of how you see yourself. The next time you book an airline ticket, take the mental leap and book yourself in first class, because you are first class. You have sat in the coach of life long enough. It's no longer looking at the aisle to see who's in business class. You belong there, go there. That's how you become audacious.
Absolutely. I love it. I love it. Really, it really is in alignment with some of what you've said. And I also remember Jim Rohn shared something similar, that if you want to attract quality people in your life, you need to become a quality person. And
Absolutely.
I love that you need to begin to treat yourself five-star so that you can attract more of that five-star experience in your life.
Yes, absolutely.
Beautiful. And so in your you shared that one of your Vuja Day moments was realizing that we need to own the moment. And you talk a lot about owning the moment. Now, I know part of what you shared there is part of the process of owning the moment, but we also know that this relates to brands, that brands need to own the moment. How can one stand out and be brilliant by owning the moment?
Well, first of all, everyone that they deal with, treat them as their guest. Number two, personalize the experience as often and as early as you can. For instance, if you know that it's a person's birthday, or perhaps they're celebrating the anniversary of doing business with you, or they've given you a referral, go above and beyond to give them something personal that's separate from everyone else. Not too long ago, I was speaking at a convention, and the gentleman, before I sat down, they said, we want to give you a personalized autograph hat from Arnold Palmer. The gentleman who's the gift had recognized that I had just met Mr. Arnold Palmer prior. I was ecstatic over meeting him, and he took himself to personalize that experience. All right. The third thing is anticipate what people may need even before they ask. That's how you stand out. That's how you stand head and shoulders above the competition. Then immediately. Too many people don't respond expeditiously. You have to be uber responsive in this economy. And that means unlock your inner Madagascar and move it, get to, I like to move it, move it. You know the song, right?
See, that's the type of thing you can expect in his book.
And then the third thing is I want you to keep your customers loyal through kindness. I mentioned kindness a moment ago, but in a very hyper busy world, we have to take time that, for instance, if we're on an airplane and older person reaching up to get their luggage and they're struggling, do yourself a favor, you help them. Those types of begin to build your brand when no one is looking, because a brand is not How do you show up when it's time to do the deal? It's about the character that's developed when no one is looking that establishes your brand for the long.
Absolutely. And so the brand is really those collection of moments.
Correct. Exactly. And moments create momentum, and momentum creates monumental results.
I love that. I love that. Moments create momentum, and momentum creates monumental results. That's a pearl of wisdom you want to write
Yes.
down. And so I know that part of your process in, how a person shifts from being, average to becoming brilliant is also letting go of some stuff. And you spoke about it earlier about letting certain things die. Now, I really loved how, because I've never seen that story, I've never heard the story told in that way, the story where, please correct me if I'm saying it incorrectly, where God instructed this man to walk up the mountain with his son, and he was supposed to sacrifice his son, but he didn't know that the ram story. And so I've heard that story as a child,
Right.
but I've never heard it told in this way in terms of letting go and letting the universe support your desires. So how do you identify the ram in your life and how do you release it so that you can allow things to come to you?
Yeah. It first starts with asking yourself, what have I not dealt with? Who have I not forgiven? What am I still holding on to that no longer works? And how do I come to a place where, once again, I let it die? Or I let it go. Until you let it go, you can't let it come. Because what you want wants you. You would never have a desire to want something unless you first had the capacity to have it. But sometimes, in order to have it, you have to write a letter to that person who wronged you and let that go. You have to begin to forgive yourself for something that didn't work out and let that go. You have to begin to celebrate what has gone well, and because whatever you bless, you attract. So when you begin to celebrate what has gone well, you attract more of it, right? But it really starts with having a self-awareness conversation as to where am I really? How do I need to grow? And how do I deal with my unfinished business? Because whatever you don't deal with will eventually deal with you. So for instance, for the last few months, 15 months to be exact, I've been seeing a therapist, and my therapist has been doing counseling for 37 years. And she has invited me to begin to deal with my unfinished business issues, things that I haven't addressed. Mama issues. There's a lot of research out about daddies and daughters, but not a lot of research about mothers and sons, right? So there are some things that I've had to address. And what I recognize, I can never take an audience or individuals to a place I've myself. So the moment I begin to address my shortcomings and where I have failed, and really understanding just because I failed doesn't mean I'm a failure, but really begin to embrace that, all of a sudden doors, opportunity, chance meetings begin to show up because now I am ready to be there. But there happened in here and in here. When I got head and heart on the same page, all of a sudden my hands begin to lay hold to the thing that was waiting for me to show up.
So I'm really getting here is that sometimes when you're not getting what you want, it's because your head and your heart are in two different places, and it's time to bring everything into alignment.
Yes, you're totally disconnected.
I love that.
Correct. Correct.
And this disconnection, I know because I think we live in a world where now, because of social media and mass marketing, a lot of people have become disconnected because they're not sure who they need to be. And so what I get, especially in my industry, you have a lot of online coaches and service-based entrepreneurs. They're spinning like, who's my ideal client? And they're thinking they need to be a certain person to attract that ideal client. And so one of the things you've said is that we have a lot of copies running around and no originals. And so how do we resist the temptation of following the status quo, of resisting what seems like the safe path, the sure path to success, and really following our inner calling, that place of alignment within ourselves?
I'm going to make it really simple, and that is do your own work. When I say do your own work, so many times people are born originals, in the words of John Mason in his book, The Enemy Called Average, but they die copies because they are trying to be like everyone else. I call that the comparison inferiority complex. You're comparing what someone else did, hoping that if you do it the way they did it, you're going to have the same result. You're not. And get over it. I'm here to tell you what I know, not what I read in a book, not what I wrote in a book. When you were created, there's no one else on the planet has your fingerprint, that has your eyes, that has your look and feel. You are one of a kind. So in being one of a kind, you are an authentic person who understands how to be your most brilliant self. When you do you, boo, be you. And when you be you, you find your people. So stop trying to emulate everyone else. Your people will find you when you find yourself, when you find your authentic voice and you begin to put it out there. That's why the reason people connect with me all over the world is because I speak the truth that resonates with me. I'm not trying to make you like me. I'm not trying to force feed you or force you into a relationship. You come to me because you sense and you've done your research that I am an original voice instead of a known echo. And when the day you decide to be your authentic self, you will become that original voice instead of an annoying echo.
I love that. Annoying echo. Nobody wants to be that. So everyone needs
No,
to feel
no.
safe being you. And so speaking about copies and doing what everyone else is doing, there is a certain mindset that sort of helps you make that shift in terms of, because usually when you're doing that, it's because you're operating on the competitive plane. You think you need to compete with this person or be like this person to achieve what they have. And going back to what you said about alignment, there is that point of completion when you operate from a place of completion. Can you share a little bit about that? Because I love how you explain it, making that mindset shift from competitive to completion.
Right. So when I understand how to really look at my mindset, I start with my habits. And the secret of sustaining, shifting your brilliance is hidden in your daily routine. So every single day, if I have a plan, I have habits, I have behavior. I work my plan, I identify the right behavior I need to have, and that creates a habit. The more I go through this, I don't worry about what the competition is doing. I don't worry about what the competition's pricing is. I don't worry about what benefits or bonuses or campaigns the competition is doing. I'm aware of it, but I'm running my race. And in running my race, I stay in my lane. If I stay in my lane, I'm not chasing money, money's chasing me because I become complete and whole in my soul, WHOLE, whole in my soul, and comfortably confident that if I don't do what you're doing, I'm not going to lose. I'm in the right place at the right time. And I don't ever want to miss my timing because timing is critically important into achieving anything. If I try to copy and do what you're doing, in the spirit of competition, it may throw my timing off and I might miss a chance encounter or a door that was waiting open for me when I got there, but I missed it because I was distracted by watching the competition. So I have to be number one, my authentic self. Number two, I have to use my original voice. Number three, I have to show up every single day in the skin that I'm in, smile and serve the moment.
I love that. I love that. Not missing your moment because you are distracted. And don't we live in a world where everyone, it seems to be distracted, trying to do many things, but not really getting ahead in the things that they're good at. So I really love that you're sharing this powerful message But I know it's going to be life-changing for a lot of people. And so I want to know what, for instance, what parting advice would you give for anyone out there listening who is really ready to break out into their truly original, authentic self, make an impact, and really have money chase them and not be chasing money, because we love that.
Well, I think number one, you have to become an expert in your field of learning. Become the top 1%, become world class, know every thought leader and what he or she is saying in your core field, and then decide what is your thought leadership around that. Second thing I invite you to do is go and help the least, the last, and the lost. Reach out to those who can do nothing for you and begin to serve them in the spirit of love, care, and raising up all of humanity, that the consciousness of all humanity. And then the third thing I invite you to really consider, if my life was to end within the next 12 months, what would I do? How would I live? Make a list, write all those things down. After you write down the list, I want you to step back and say, what if I do those things right now? That's how you become world class. That's how you become the leader of the field, because you move quick, you move fast, you move now.
This is wonderful advice. So really grabbing the moment and moving with inspired action every time it comes to you, not waiting, because the moment is now and you can never have that moment back.
Right.
Thank you so much, Simon. This has been an amazing, you have moved me in many ways, and I know that everyone listening has been moved by your message. And I encourage you, as you're listening now, get Simon T. Bailey's books. They are amazing. Watch his talks. There are many online on YouTube. He is an amazing, powerful speaker. And I hope that you have learned today how to shift your brilliance.